Welcome to my new show, 2023, with the creative title of New Works. Usually I have better titles than that, but I'm letting some of the titles of the pieces themselves take over the verbal interest of this whole thing. We've got 21 new pieces from 3 years ago, and I'm excited. These are colorful and have been slowly coming out in these 3 years. What I do is called assemblage, which is essentially a 3D collage. So you can see in all these pieces there are many objects that I find any place. I often pick things up off the street. I find things in secondhand stores. People give me things, and I'm also really picky. Certain things turn me on, and certain things I'm not interested at all in. So sometimes people give me things, and I just give them to other assemblage artists, because we all have really different styles in how we put things together and what we choose to put together. You find some stuff that kind of looks like it might go together, like these things. This is the bottom of a kid's toolbox that I flattened out. This is some kind of door lock, but I love how it sort of sits up like that. This box is I tried some other things with it and it didn't really work. This is the top of a watering can. But it is very friendly with this thing that I don't know what it is. But look at how cool that is. So that's how I start. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. When I get in really organized moods, sometimes I'll go, okay, this is all my round things. And you can see there's some organization here. It does fall apart. Like right now I've been working on something so I have a lot of screws here. But I do for a while I was keeping the silver things over there and the springs down here. I have so many springs though that they're sort of, this whole box here is also springs of different kinds, and little baby springs too. This particular piece, there's a large rusty thing in the back that's actually sitting on a game board. And I am really attracted to large rusty things. In fact, anything that shows a lot of remnants of use on it. So I picked up this back rusty thing. These two objects, these antique buttons, and this is some kind of ball bearing holder. It's still kind of greasy. In fact, a lot of these things, Nick complains because as he's framing them and as they're framed, detritus falls down. So there's always crap in the bottom of the frame, and he can't do anything, but we blow it out. I try to clean it, he cleans it. But these two things, actually there's a pencil sharpener here. But these two things have been sitting together for probably 2 years. And it wasn't until I found this rusty background that things started to make sense. I have no idea what this collection of wires going together is. I found that right by a train intersection and picked up a whole bunch of stuff and put it in my bike. But once I had those things, it's like, oh, it's got a home, and that made me really happy. Then I was finding, my other job is a calligrapher, and I'm really intrigued with words, not necessarily always in calligraphy, but I like strange commands done by inanimate objects. And so you can see here, please ring off when through with long distance call, which is why this is called Please Ring Off. Yeah, that in general. It's a three-dimensional collage, and I collect a lot of stuff. Most of them come together really slowly over weeks, although I do work in spurts. I'll all of a sudden go, when I won't come up from the basement in long periods of time. But it is sort of like a bladder filling up though, both creatively and just gathering things. So I sort of work and use up a whole bunch of stuff, and then I have to go find more stuff and work in spurts like that. But it really is magic because all these pieces, I don't feel like I have a lot of control of what they want to do. So coming together, all the pieces that don't necessarily belong together find themselves and create something else. And it's nice taking them from, although I find all this stuff attractive in and themselves, but putting them together in sort of controlled way and then finishing it with Nick actually contributing to the assemblage itself, giving it sort of the legitimacy of an actual frame. And in this case, in this show, we've sort of gone with the whole idea of letting the frame really be part of the piece and not just a supporting system. So you'll see some of these, especially the silver one over there, where there's a modeled piece of aluminum, and Nick found the perfect frame to go with it that looks like modeled aluminum. This one's interesting because there are, of course, it started out as a pinball game anyway. And so it had little projectiles coming out that I could hang things or screw. I've got screw nuts on here that I have screwed on, but there's tiny little grommets behind the nuts, and those actually came from some expensive pasta that my daughter loved for a while, and it would be grommeted on the top. So whenever that was done, I would save the little gold things. So there's got to be, I don't know, there's probably 20 to 30 little grommets from pasta here. Sometimes the backgrounds, you know, you can see some of the ones here have game boards behind them. And game boards are funny because they can either be beautiful and a perfect background, or they can have so much personality themselves that I can't use them because I can't do anything to them without wrecking them. So sometimes I just frame those and put them up in my house. This had a lot of personality, and you had to, it really took a long time to find out how the pieces were going to fit around it. But this one's pretty light. What I've found is getting more and more difficult is I used to attach everything. My pieces used to be very small and very dark, but I could attach everything with wire. I love putting things together with wire. But in this show, some of the items are so heavy that I have to actually have backing in back. I have plexiglass backgrounds with really heavy wire holding objects up. So that's starting to be an issue. I might have to start welding if things keep going like this. The assemblage is my tendency. You know, I've always collected this stuff and put little things around my whole house. So those things have always been there. And before I was a calligrapher, I drew a lot, and I was just a straight artist, and I would draw all the little objects and put them together and essentially make an assemblage, but it was a drawing. When I became a calligrapher and I was really spending all my time doing that, I kind of thought, well, I'm a calligrapher and I'm not going to do anything else. But I was still collecting things. And then I started messing around with photographs, which I really don't use anymore now for the most part. But I started writing on photographs and adding things to the photographs. So my early things were really dark, like I said, with women hiding behind objects, and they usually had calligraphy in them. Now, I pretty much left the calligraphy behind. Sometimes I do it. But I think what was really good is when I stopped feeling like I had to do calligraphy in them and just let the assemblages happen, and when they started really happening and making themselves really coming out so it was something special. That was so exciting because I didn't feel like I had to do anything else to it to prove to whoever that I was doing art. Besides that I like strange old things and putting them together. Well, I think if you're going to get psychological about it, they are getting more colorful. Like I said, when I started using game boards, I mentioned this before, I like a certain era of game boards that have really sort of jewel tone colors. I have found that they're getting harder and harder to find and more expensive to buy. So I've just started using mat board itself and trying to capture that sort of colorfulness of things. They are getting more colorful, they're getting bigger, they're getting stronger and happier, I think, and probably more together. So, you know, you can read into whatever you want.